Hey there, welcome. My name is Lou Diamond, speaker, consultant, podcaster, and author of Speakeasy. You know, in the original Speakeasies, it was real important to stay very quiet, so the police couldn't hear where your clandestine special nightclub was. Well, here, at this Speakeasy, we encourage conversations. You see, I believe that every connection begins with a great conversation. In fact, at this establishment and in my book Speakeasy, I've put together the tips, tricks, techniques, blends, mixtures, and concoctions that you need to make more of your conversations great. Whether you're a professional looking to grow your business, a leader looking to connect your people, or an individual looking to grow your own personal connections, the lessons you'll learn in Speakeasy will help you connect, engage, and win in all of your conversations.
Thrive Loud listeners, fun episode coming ahead here on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. You're about to get a chance to connect with Jackie the Jokeman Martling. Jackie's been on the program before a long time ago when the episode was back in the single digits. That's over 800 some odd episodes ago. So we catch up with Jackie, hear what he's all about. Jackie also wanted me to let you know that you can reach out to him. He loves responding to emails and listeners. He's at jokeland@aol.com. And he will reply back to you. Trust me, he will. He loves to stay connected with his fans. And make sure to stay all the way on through the end of the episode, because you may get a little surprise from Jackie, a little gift. He shares some of his brilliance with us here on Thrive Loud. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this great episode with Jackie the Jokeman Martling.
Oh, my childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon, luge lessons. In spring, we'd make meat helmets. When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really. At the age of 12, I received my first scribe. At the age of 14, a Zoroastrian named Vilma ritualistically shaved my testicles, as bald as the top of Lou Diamond's head. There really is nothing like a shorn scrotum. It's breathtaking. Much like Lou Diamond's head. I suggest you try it.
Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular, fantabulous, absolutely unbelievable, you're not going to believe your ears episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Thrive Loud listeners, today we have a special guest. We are going back to one of the OGs of Thrive Loud from when we first started this podcast. I can't believe it. It's like 5 years ago since we did this. He is a well-renowned comic. His voice is indistinguishable from wherever you hear it. He grew up in the comedy pits of New York, lives in Long Island, was on some show called Howard Stern a long time ago, has also been on comedy stage for thousands of appearances across this lovely nation. He is an author since the last time we had him on the show. He is also now a podcaster. He is soon to be a movie star. We'll hear more about it then. Thrive Loud listeners, the honor is mine. I get to bring you back the great Jackie the Jokeman Martling. Jackie, how are you?
That was all so nice, but the one thing that was stood out the most is the word thriving. I haven't heard that word in so long, especially applied to me. And you know what? And I am thriving. So
you are thriving above and below the waist. I hear.
Well, you know that now we're talking about the come closer problem. But,
exactly.
Everything is pretty good. I just came from physical therapy. I had a knee replacement 4 months ago, and I'm like new. The bad news is the one that I didn't have replaced is having trouble keeping up with the new one. So, you win some. It's like painting the George Washington Bridge.
They just keep, it never ends.
Right.
Jackie,
how are you? It's good to see you again. This is fun.
It is good to see you. Listeners got to know that I actually got to meet Jackie on his radio show in the old Sirius XM studios with other guests who've been on the show, Ian Carr and Jenna Axelrod. We had a lot of fun. We got to read jokes all day long and be fun, and that's how we met. And then Thrive Loud launched, and I got the lovely opportunity for those loyal Thrive Loud listeners to go to his house where he is right now in Bayville, Long Island, where we had lawnmowers. It was 90 degrees out. The wind was blowing, and I had high-tech microphones trying to capture Jackie in that interview, and I was freaking out going, no one's going to hear this. Everybody heard it. It worked out great.
Yeah, I'm a loudmouth, so of course they heard it.
Okay, I want to catch up with you. Share with everybody what's going on in Jackie right now. Your comedy. You got so many things going on. You've had a book that came out. Give everybody up to speed, would you?
We started, Peter Bales, who's a history professor and also a longtime comedian who lives right in Locust Valley, two towns over. And he was starting out in comedy at the comic strip at the same time as Dennis Wolfberg and Jerry Seinfeld and Larry Miller and all these guys. But he had been a big fan of my band because my band drew so many girls to the shows in Oyster Bay. So he actually knew me from that. I didn't know that. And he dragged me into the comic strip in Manhattan, and I passed, and we've been friends for, I guess it's 43 years at this point.
Wow.
So we have a podcast called Stand Up Memories. And it's funny, they asked me to do this podcast at this great place, Tied In Media.
Yeah.
Tied In Studios. It's a real great setup. The guy has a lot of money, didn't spare any expense. And they asked me to do a podcast. And I said, I don't want to just sit here and talk about myself. I got to get a guest. And I brought in Peter. We did 24 shows before we had a guest. I mean, we were just talking about the old days and the stories. I mean, a lot of stuff happens in 43 years, And there were many decades where we didn't work together. So we had so much, and now we've moved to a new thing where we're having comics and their spouses. Which has been so fun. We had Carrie Karavis and her husband, and we had Joey Cola and his wife, and it's just a whole new prism, and it's just fantastic. We just started season 3, and we're having a great time. There's at least 4 or 5 people watching it, which is really exciting.
At least 4 or 5,
right? And I put out my autobiography, which did pretty well, and I still get emails because people are still finding it. I haven't talked to you. The book sold okay because there was a lot of fans that really wanted to see it. And a lot of people bitched at me. Why didn't you rag on Howard? Why didn't you tell more dirt? I'm not a dirt guy, believe it or not. And meanwhile, there wasn't any. Anything that happened on the show, everybody knew already.
Right.
But the devil's in the details. And I gave all the details and it was fun. But all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, I got this huge bump in sales. And the publisher called me up and said, wow, what happened? What show did you go on TV? What'd you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. He said, well, you got a great bump in sales. What happened was Howard Stern put out a book a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And if you sell a book, if you go to buy a book on Amazon, when you're going to buy the book, underneath it says,
you might also like.
You might also like. And none of his listeners knew about my book because he never mentioned it. Nobody knew about it. So anybody that was buying his book, they're seeing it for the first time, and they already got their credit card, and they already got the mouse. So with another click in $14.95, you got Jackie's book too, and it's just boom, 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 boom. It's just, I don't, to this day, I have no idea if he has any idea that he, inadvertently helped me, which was really funny. And then a little while later, they put out a joke book, which is, I don't believe I don't have one right here. With the cover is a naked picture of my butt, which is it's actually in the first book. And they said, we got to use this picture for the cover of the joke book. So that book's been out, and and I sell them at shows, which is really fun. People love to get, your autobiography signed by the author. It's fun. And I'm still doing shows. I'm doing a lot of these podcasts, and people say, oh, thanks for doing my podcast. I'm like, come on, you asking me to sit down and talk about myself? I do that when I'm not plugged in anywhere. And there's always things that happen that say, my act is just jokes and jokes. That's all I do. But when funny things happen, this was not. My sister called me up and said, are you coming over? And I said, yeah. She said, will you stop on the way and get some diapers? I have no diapers here. And she's the grandmother of my goddaughter's twins. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I go into Rite Aid, and I looked the girl in the eye and said, wear the diapers. And not being funny, she looked me right in the eye and said, adult or children? Lou, she might as well have put an arrow in my heart. And of course that's what they're going to say, no matter who's buying diapers. But at the time, I'm like, why don't you just say, are they for you, you old fart? You know, oh God, I was just,
now, let's bring people. Jackie, how old are you now? You like sharing that? Do you share?
54.
Yeah.
No, I'm 74, Valentine's Day, 1948.
So I know you look great. You still swimming every day? That was one of the things I know you used to do?
Well, no, I'm not. Up till 2 weeks ago was the last time I went in.
A little chilly out there. Yeah.
And I didn't really swim. I just jumped in. I videotaped it. I should have sent that to you. I mean, I just jumped in the water and jumped out with the iPhone going. But up until like a week or two before that, I was, swimming like crazy, especially with the replaced knee. It's the greatest exercise in the world. Just like swim. I live right on the water, and it's just, it's really a heartbreak at the end of the summer. It's not the end of the party and the end of the beer and the end of to me, it's the end of the swimming season, which kills me,
So this is a question I wanted to ask. For those who are familiar with Jackie, and we'll get to this on the show, I'm certain, whenever Jackie tells a joke, he will laugh along with you. And you have this incredible memory. I think it's great that the name of your show has memories in it, because your ability to recall jokes is almost, I would hate to say this, but you're on the spectrum with it, because there's nobody on the planet that can do what you do.
People say to me, how do you remember all those jokes? And I tell them, that's the only thing I know. There's plenty of room up there. I got I used to say to my wife back when I was married to Nancy, I'd say, what's your mother's phone number? And she'd get incensed. She said, Jackie, you know 1 billion jokes, and you can't remember 7 digits of my mother's phone number? And I couldn't say, well, your mother's phone number won't get me laid. I could say that. But that's what sticks. I took French for 4 years in high school, and I failed. It just doesn't stick. But the jokes have always stuck, I mean, you start to lose them. I mean, I remember every joke, dirty or clean, ever. But slowly but surely, sometimes they just don't, it's like remembering somebody's name as you get older. I'm at the point now, I'm 74. Somebody said, why did the chicken cross the road? I'm like, God, I used to know that one.
But this is the question. Do you still find the jokes as funny as you do? Because that I don't think has changed. I think you literally do believe that they're as funny as they are. Yes?
I have always enjoyed them. A lot of them I remember who told me or where I was when I heard it. But, you go back in your memory when you get interviewed and stuff like that. I worked at a country club from 1962 to 66. I was the head busboy at Piping Rock Club, which is right here next town over, Locust Valley. And it is the most blue blood club in the country. I mean, the Kennedys couldn't get in because they were Catholic, that kind of thing. It was this snooty club. But it was great fun. And I was the head busboy. And, we didn't do that much. We hung around. We brought up the buffet. We didn't clean dishes. We brought up the buffet with the roast beef and the Yorkshire pudding and everything, and we cleaned up. But I was the head guy, so for the most part, I'd just be telling the guys what to do. And there was a Dutch pantry man who was just so quiet and and he was the funniest guy in the world. And I would stand there and tell him jokes, and he never, ever, ever laughed. And the more jokes I told him, I would have to laugh to fill it in. I don't know if that's consciously what happened or how the genesis. But the dishwasher, Bill Varicchio, would say, come on, let's go get him going. I walk over and say, Jake, you want to hear a joke? And he'd fold his arms and I'd tell a joke. And he'd say, like, that there's a good one. Jackie, I laugh. And would just make us crack. And to this day, I wonder if subconsciously I'm laughing at Jake not laughing.
Right. That's awesome.
But when you're in a bar room, you tell a joke, I get a kick out of them. When I tell somebody a joke, my goal is to make you laugh so like I just punched you in the stomach. If you go 4 and double, I mean, that's my goal. And people say, why do you tell dirty jokes? Because dirty jokes just evoke a much, much bigger reaction, and jokes are all about tension and breaking the tension. And people say, you don't laugh at your own, but I always have. It's harder for me to not laugh.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because if you want to be a comedian, there are two hard and fast rules about comedy. You don't tell old jokes and you don't laugh at your own jokes. And that's all I do is tell old jokes and laugh. But I'm not a comedian. I'm a joke teller. It's
Right.
a different, people say, oh, you didn't write those jokes. I said, well, you go to see Hamlet. Do you stand up and yell, you didn't write this crap? You know what I mean? That's, it's a performance. And I just get a kick out of it. Just.
With regard to this is actually something I thought about because you're right. You are a joke teller, and comedy and humor has hit such a politically correct, difficult time. I mean, it is hard to say certain things, but the purpose of going to these things is to laugh, right? We even joked about it at the Oscars earlier this year. Like, here was Chris Rock saying something that he thought was funny, and it turned out to be a disaster. From your perspective as to what's going on in comedy, one, has it changed the way that you tell jokes at all? Or two, have you seen a difference in the way the comedians perform?
I kind of tapered off a little with how outrageous I was as far as all the ethnic and this, that, and now I have a section in my act where I hit everybody rapid fire. A Jewish joke, a Catholic joke, a Mexican joke, a dwarf joke, a lesbian joke, boom, 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 boom. And then, but that's, instead of stretch out around my act, that's a hunk. And that's like to paint the picture of, if you don't think these are just in fun, anybody sees somebody just told me the other day, a girl said, when I watch you, I think if somebody else was telling these jokes, I wouldn't like them because, sexy and poop and whatever like that. But when you do it, she says, you get away with it. And I'm like, well, the whole idea is you're selling it. It's like if you go to a movie, either you buy the character or you don't. I hate talking about comedy because the minute you start discussing comedy, it ceases to be funny. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
yes.
If they sit down, Jerry Lewis or Steve Allen starts talking about what makes people just shut up, But I've always done it the same. Sometimes some things I don't laugh at because it doesn't need it. Like it's very calculated.
Yeah.
People say, oh, well, you'll go up and just rattle off all that stuff. I'm not rattling off anything. I'm working theoretically from a script. Not really, but I know exactly what jokes I'm going to tell. There's a good chance that's not the jokes I'm going to tell, but I have a script that, I might have made this on your show, said this on your show already, but people say, how do you remember all those jokes? I say, all right, I leave Oyster Bay and drive to Manhattan. How do I remember to drive past all those exits? Of course, they're on the way. And I have all these jokes that are on the way. Now, at any point, I can get off an exit and go over here and tell 14 different jokes. And I can either come back in where I got off the expressway, or if I know I've killed some time, maybe I'll come in, instead of coming in Glen Cove, I'll come in the Cross Island. It's hard to explain, but they're up there and I can veer off if I want. I mean, you might come to a show and see the exact same show the next night, or you might see one that's not even close. It's fun. It's interesting to me,
I love how you said your goal is to make everybody laugh so that it's punching them in the stomach, because I actually think that what is so amazing is that as your jokes progress, your laughter at the jokes actually picks up along the way. It's almost like in a staccato format, and then it gets longer and longer as the show goes in. And I don't know if the last joke was more funny than the first, but I think it might be the buildup of all of it.
You just gain steam, and it kind of gets, my act at this point kind of gets dirtier as it goes along. I got 6 CDs that came out. Somebody has told me everything's been taken off a podcast, off of what's it called? Spotify and Pandora. Somebody said, why did your stuff get yanked? And I asked my record company guy. He said, no, they're yanking everybody's stuff off. There's a big war with the comedians. I'm so out of the loop. I don't care. But but I put out 6 CDs. And this you talk about a memory or a work ethic. I was on the Stern Show working 5 days a week from 6 until 10. Or 6 till 11, and still doing gigs at night. And I put out a CD that was 78. my CDs are 78 minutes because that is the maximum amount of time you can have
Right.
on a voice CD. At least that's what it was in 1992 or 93. So I filled it with 78 minutes of jokes. Okay. Then I wanted to do another CD. So working as a headliner and selling out shows, I had to get rid of the 78 minutes from the first CD and replace them with the 78 minutes of the next CD. You know what I mean? Flipping them over and getting to the point where, all right, now I got a brand new act, and record it. And then I had to get rid of that. I did that 6 times. Like got rid of 80 minutes of jokes and replaced it with completely different. And these, you can't just get away. These are jokes that are killer, jokes. So I have 6 CDs that are, it's 6 times 78 minutes. I mean, it's crazy. And we sell them on olio.com. You download all 6 CDs for like $20. I mean, we sell a lot of them. And it's really weird because theoretically, if you look at it silly, when you get to the 6th CD, you're hearing the jokes that if I was standing telling you jokes at a bar, this would be after 6 hours. This is the jokes I would get. But of course, that's not how it works out. And you hear more and more and more and more new ones. So now, what I do in my act, I don't change my act much. I just have the very, very, very best of all those years. And of course, since the last CD, you pick up a few new jokes and they wind up in your act. And I never get sick. I was telling somebody yesterday that, they're talking about dirty jokes and not so dirty jokes. And it's so funny. You know what you can get away with? Shit. You can tell anything about shit. Because as offensive as that should be, it's not, because everybody goes to the bathroom. It is not, it doesn't offend because it can't. It goes right across the board. I don't care if you're a midget or an Eskimo or a priest. You got to sit there and do your poop, So it's not, it's something that it's just ridiculous. So I did a show at the Iridium in Manhattan, and I was with Mark Hudson from the Hudson Brothers, who's just a great character. You might know him through Ian.
Through Ian,
yeah.
We've connected.
He's so good.
Yeah.
So, and he did a show called Thursdays on the Hudson at the Iridium, and he'd have different guests. And he had Billy J. Kramer from the end of the Dakotas, the guy. And whenever I go to the Iridium, I always wound up getting up and telling jokes. I got up and told some jokes, and the place is packed, and we had a great time. I went in the back in the green room with Mark and Billy, and we're laughing. And I came out afterwards, and the place was still packed. And a guy comes up to me and says, Jackie, I know that you've been besieged forever and ever, but I got one. I really want you to hear it. I know you know it, but just in case, I want to try it on you. And I said, listen, of course I want to hear your joke because I've been listening my entire life. I'm the last guy standing in the bar when people are telling jokes, but I listen and listen and listen because you never know when you're going to hear a new one. And add it to the pile. This guy told me a joke. Lou, this is a true story. He told me a joke that's so dirty that I can't use it in my act. Because it's like, oh, and you can't have a joke that people have that kind of reaction to because you can't lose them. They got to be there for the setup of the next joke. That's why I do very little jokes about like Jesus, because somebody will laugh, and then if they have a second thought about, oh, is that blasphemy? And they miss the first 2 words of the next joke, I've lost them. So it's got nothing to do with religion, or it's just what works in my act. So this joke is so dirty, I don't use it in my act. Once in a while, I pop it in to see if I'm right, and I'm right. They're gone. But you can tell the joke on AM terrestrial radio, and you can tell the joke to your kids, to your grandmother. Imagine fitting all that criteria. You can tell it on AM radio, you can tell it to kids, but it's too dirty for my act. Okay?
That's crazy.
A girl calls the doc, says, Doc, I got diarrhea. Can I take a bath? And he says, if you got enough. And kids go nuts. That's a poop joke.
All right.
But it's so disgusting thing. People are like, oh, and they missed the next joke. You know, I've told that on the radio 1,000 times. I hugged the guy. He said, "Oh no, you're lying. You heard?" I'm telling you, I never heard that before. You know, if people finally tell me a joke I haven't heard, they think I'm lying. You know, but isn't that a classic?
I love it, and that's the thing is that you can make as dirty as it could be. You could still make it deliver. This was what I thought about the other day, and this goes back to last week, listeners. We're recording this in mid November, and Jackie shared with me something via text, and I went on to it, and I said, if you would have told me 2 years ago, let alone 2 months ago, that Jackie would be trending on TikTok, I would say you were crazy. But this was one of the funniest messages. Lou, you got to go check out this video. You won't believe it, and spreading it like wildfire. For the record, I didn't even need to check it out. I went on to TikTok and it came to me because that meant that I was obviously in the worlds that we associate with. But how crazy is that?
I know nothing about TikTok. You mean people get fed that joke?
Yes.
If comedy or a joke will come to you?
Hold on one sec, Jack.
We just okay. Got locked up for a second.
There we go. I think we got locked up. We should be good now. Okay. I'm going to go back to you. There we go. Okay.
TikTok, that you automatically get fed that? You automatically get fed that on, I don't know.
Showed up. Okay, hold on one second. Let me hit pause for a sec. Let me just pause for 1 sec. I'm hitting pause. Hold on. Okay, I hit pause. Okay, now we're back. You got me? Say hello. Go wave or something. All right, we apologize for those technical difficulties there. Yeah, but yes, it came to me in my TikTok feed, Jackie. Came to me.
You know, I did a podcast yesterday with a professional.
I think it's the Wi-Fi in your room or something like that.
Oh, it's my Wi-Fi. It's very possibly my
Who knows?
Wi-Fi.
Don't worry about it.
Who knows? But that TikTok thing, I never did it. I don't know anything about it. And years ago, a guy, when you're in the radio business or any show business, whatever, nobody leaves. I meet somebody in Chicago, and 5 years later, I meet him in L.A., and 3 years later, he's in New Orleans. And, hey, remember me? I was the general manager in Philadelphia. This guy said, hey, I got 3 channels, 3 stations here in Phoenix. Why don't you do some jokes? And I've done jokes for so many radio shows and so many in every different kind of way. I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do 1 joke a day, okay? Right. Jackie's 420 joke. You put it on your stations at 420, and then somebody knows there's going to be a joke at 420. It's only 1 joke, so they don't have to worry about lists, because people try to remember every joke you said, and they remember none. So they know they can just listen to 1 joke, and then I tell you the joke. Lou, listen to this joke and say, wow, that's great. Where did you hear that? I heard Jackie on WLLL at 420. It's 420 joke, and it immediately, all the stations were doing great. And I did it like this for 3 or 4 months. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And all the stations took a crap, the whole thing. So then people
you were doing it on then you were doing it on Twitter. That's what I remembered. You had it on Twitter right?
What I was doing was I was putting jokes on Twitter for like 15 or 20 years. A joke every day, but a text joke.
Right.
When this guy asked for the joke for the radio stations, believe it or not, it's easier to make an iPhone video and send that than to make an MP3. So I put them all on video, and he would take the audio and put those on the radio station, and sometimes he'd put the video of the joke on his website for the station. Now, this is terrestrial radio, so it's got to be clean enough for radio, okay? So then somebody says, you should put some jokes on TikTok, and it hit me that I had all these jokes without the name of the station, without me talking about me, without plug, just me giggling, telling a joke, and giggling. The perfect thing. So I started putting them on TikTok, and somebody hear one, and they go hear the next one, and they go back and listen to this one. So they all grow in stature. And it's funny how, some have 13,000 views, and some have 2,000 views, and some have 40. And I don't know if it's got to do with how good the joke is or just how it hits people, but it started getting crazy. And I started getting, You know, this always happens with me. Back when I started 922 Wine, my dial joke, and originally they told me you got to clean it up. It's too dirty. But it was 1979, which at that point they were just starting with the cable TV. And all of a sudden, instead of the Andy Griffith Show, you're sitting with your mother. Jokes. Filthy joke on. And the guy behind the counter says, "Oh,
Created a dial-a-joke line.